Tales from Eastern and Southern Asia. The Priest and the Pear Tree, from China. In the marketplace of the village one day there was a farmer with a cartload of beautiful pears. People crowded around his cart to see his pears, for they were very wonderful to look at, and he was known for miles around for the quality of his fruit. The farmer also had a reputation for stinginess, and the price of the pears was high. While the crowd stood around him in this way, a ragged-looking wandering priest came among them and looked at the pears. Very humbly he begged the farmer to give him one. But the farmer was mean and bad-tempered, and he refused. The poor priest, undiscouraged by the rough reply he received, remained standing before the cart looking at the fruit. The farmer was greatly irritated by this, and he began to berate the priest, calling him all manner of unpleasant names. Yet the priest still remained, saying, "Countryman, there are hundreds of pears in your cart. Surely you wouldn't miss one if you gave it to me." Someone in the crowd spoke up then, saying to the farmer, "Why don't you give the poor man a pear? If you can't spare a good one, give him a soft one. You'll never miss it." The farmer, urged in this way, became even more obstinate and angry. "I have grown these pears through hard work. I have no intention of bringing them to the market to dispense charity." Other people in the marketplace began to speak, some taking the side of the farmer, some taking the side of the poor priest. Their voices rose. There were arguments and shouting. The hubbub became louder. At last a man came forward and handed the farmer a coin. He said, "Do you prefer this unpleasant scene to a small act of kindness? Here is money. Give the man a pear." The farmer handed the priest a pear. The priest took it, acknowledging the gift by a low bow. Then he addressed the crowds which stood among him. "I am deeply puzzled how a man who has had as much good fortune as this fruit farmer can be so stingy as to refuse to give away a single pear. I, who asked for it, gave up everything when I became a priest. I have no money, no home, and no family. Yet what I have, I gladly share with others. For example, I have a whole tree full of pears. I beg you to stay a moment and share them with me." "If you have so many pears, why do you come to the market and beg for one?" a man asked the priest. "Ah," the priest said, "I must grow them first." He quickly ate the pear in his hand, saving from it a single seed. Then he dug a hole in the ground and placed the seed in it, covering it with loose earth. "I need a little water," he said. The people in the crowd laughed, but a small boy quickly brought a pot of water and gave it to the priest, who poured it on the ground. And suddenly they saw a tiny green sprout push its way through the earth. It grew taller swiftly. Branches appeared on it, and leaves came out on the branches. The sprout became a tree, which grew taller and taller. More leaves came out, then buds, then pear blossoms. The pear blossoms fell off, leaving behind them tiny pears, which swelled until they became full grown. The beautiful fruit weighed the branches down, so many were there. The crowd applauded with delight. The priest, his face shining with pleasure, picked the pears one by one and handed them out to the people as presents. The fruit farmer, who had refused to give anything to the priest, stood with his mouth open. Finally, the priest picked the last pear from the miraculous tree and gave it away. Then he took the hatchet which hung on his back and chopped the tree down. He took the tree on his shoulder and walked away from the market, leaving the crowd chewing on pears. The fruit farmer with the cart of pears, like all the others, watched the poor priest until he was out of sight. Then the farmer turned back to his cart. He saw with horror that the cart was empty. Every single pear had disappeared. In a flash he understood what had happened. The pears the old priest had given away so generously had come out of the cart. They were the pears of the fruit farmer. As he stood there, trying to figure out the full extent of the calamity, the fruit farmer saw that one of the handles of the cart was missing. He looked more closely and observed that it had been hacked off, as though by a hatchet. So this is what the priest had been chopping before he left. The fruit farmer was in a great rage. He ran out of the marketplace after the priest. He did not find him, but lying in the street against a wall he saw the broken cart handle. When the people in the marketplace finally understood the joke of the wandering priest, there was a great uproar. Only the stingy fruit farmer failed to join in the laughter. As for the old priest, he was never seen again in that part of the country.